Hey guys, in this video, I'm gonna share with you guys the #1 framework for decision making that blew my mind when I learned it from a mentor and took me from being totally lost in life and stuck to getting unstuck, taking action on my dreams, and not only making my first $1 million, starting my podcast, traveling the world, but also how you can implement this framework for any area of life, because I believe this philosophy is the most sustainable way to actually make your dreams a reality. So with no further ado, let's dive right in. So the #1 thing that I think holds most people back, as simple as it sounds, is something called values. Now, when I say values, you guys might hear that and go,
okay, cool, that sounds boring, Omar. That sounds simple.
But the reality is, when is the last time you actually sat down and decided what are your values? A lot of times people say, you know, I'm inspired to take action on my dreams and I know I need to set my priorities straight, but I just can't get motivated. I just can't get inspired. I just can't take action. The reality is that I would bet you what's truly holding you back is this little word, value. Before we get into it, let's define what is a value. Now, of course, there's many definitions, but according to Oxford, the definition that I choose to use from their list is one's own judgment of what is important in life. The reality is that most of us operate out of a subconscious belief of what's important, right? And sometimes we think certain things are values, right? There's a difference that we have to identify between actual core values that are honest and aligned with ourselves and values that are social idealisms that we've inherited from others. Now, this could be your upbringing, this could be your family, this could be your religion, whatever it is. At your core, when someone feels unaligned or feels successful but unfulfilled, and we've all seen stories of people in society like this, what that means is that a current circumstance is not aligned with our highest values. If we don't decide what is of most important to us in life, how are we going to have a framework for decision making? And so here's why this is important. This is huge. Once you define it, you realize that this is the governing force of your life, your business, your relationships, virtually every area of your life. I kind of think of it like gravity, right? Whether or not you're conscious of the formula of gravity, it's in effect. The same is true with your value system, because your values operate your beliefs manifest through action, and your values are what govern the whole ship. So I'll give you an example. Take the average kid who is spontaneously inspired from within to play 4 hours of video games every day. That same kid could be diagnosed with what they call ADHD, attention deficit disorder. Why is it easier for a kid to play 4 hours of video games than to read for 4 minutes something he's not interested in? The difference is what they value, what they value most. Not what other people are projecting into them, not what their parents or what religion or what the environment or whatever the extrinsic stimulus could be, but truly what that individual values. Now, this is true for me, and it's also true for you. I started out in an environment several years ago where I felt totally lost. I felt I didn't have a good social circle. I felt I had friends who had a limited mindset, didn't have a lot of personal development knowledge, and I was seeking it. And so your biggest voids become your biggest values. Isn't that true for you? If you ask yourself, what are the things right now that you value most? I bet you whatever it is, it's probably something rooted in your biggest voids. Whether that's finances, your health, your relationships, or any micro detail in any of those areas, I guarantee you at some level, the things you value the most are the things you perceive having the least of. Now, why is this important to understand? Well, because life rewards us most when we are living in our highest values. Now, some people can have different words for this, some people could have different names for this, but at its core, people say alignment. That's why a lot of times someone could have a different money-making opportunity, right? A lot of people want to make $1 million when they're first starting in business. I know I did. But there's a lot of different ways to make the same amount of money. You can make $100,000 over here with this business partner. You could do some shady thing over here. You could do some legit thing over here that might take longer, right? And so the money is not equal. Those $100,000 or $1 million opportunities are not equal. The difference is predicated on one thing, and that is the value system that you have associated to the process of that, i.e. aligned or not aligned. There's a probability that if it wasn't aligned with your values up front, somewhere down the road, the consequence of that kind of showed up. There's a great quote I love. It says, you can ignore the facts, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring the facts. And the fact is that when you live in your highest values, although nobody's perfect, life will always reward you the most when you do. Hey guys, quick question. Have you been enjoying this video, but you're thinking to yourself, man, I love this content, but I want to learn how to grow my brand or my business? Well, if your answer is yes, you're not alone. In fact, millions of entrepreneurs deal with this exact same issue. And it's something that I've learned the answer to from interviewing 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs around the world. And this philosophy that solves all that is a concept called who, not how. Now, the who, not how philosophy states that anytime you're stuck on the hows to get to the next level in your life, your brand, or your business, that there's always a who to help you get there. And it's for this exact reason that I'm super excited to announce that I've officially launched our brand new Passionate Few community to help you do exactly that. And yes, it's 100% free. Join me and the thousands of other entrepreneurs that can help you make your life, your business, and your dreams a reality. With no further ado, let's get back to the video.
Okay, Omar, this sounds really interesting. You're kind of rambling on. I know you're inspired by this. Maybe it worked for you, but how does this apply to me?
It's very simple. I want to encourage you to look at your own life. I want you to think about the things that you feel you want the most, but maybe aren't quite working in your life. Maybe you wish, you hope, you'd prefer, but it's just not quite there. I bet you if you really challenge yourself, the truth is you truly don't value it as much as you say you do. And that's not meant to do anything but challenge you, right? I'm saying this from a place of love because values can ebb and flow. But the reality is the gap between where you are and where you want to be is a set of actions that are based on your values. So let's kind of zoom in. What are your values? My values, as I see it, are things like clarity, simplicity, honesty, integrity, abundance. And I would encourage you guys to grab a pen and paper and do this for your own life. As you do this, I want to encourage you to not necessarily worry about all of them, but I would just get conscious of it because there's a magic that happens once you put things on paper. Now, as you kind of map through and kind of go through some of these things, you'll start to notice patterns of things that pop out, right? So for me, I value things like clarity, simplicity, authenticity, peace of mind. And so when I go about my day, anytime I get stuck, I've begun to ask myself, what do I value here? Because the truth is, anytime you get stuck in life, what you're really stuck on is a value clarification issue. And so by getting the values decided up front, at least for that season of your life, it empowers you with a lot more momentum and confidence to make those decisions because come hell or high water, at the very least, you can say you stood on your values. And Tony Robbins says it best, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And there is no fulfillment without alignment. And there is no alignment without value clarification up front. I've begun to kind of think about things instead of concepts that are kind of vague that run my life, like probably many of you guys have like, okay, I just want to maximize revenue. I just want to work my ass off. I've begun to think about things like peace of mind. I just had an opportunity to go to an amazing, surreal experience, and I found myself kind of conflicted between if I should go to this amazing, it was a soccer game experience, or a unique opportunity that was happening with my family. But when I looked at my value board, because I had written them down, I realized family was on there, and nowhere in there was a soccer game. Now, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, but sometimes what happens is moment to moment, if we don't decide up front and we're not in a season of life where we're conscious of our values and the priority of our values, then it's easy for external stimulus to kind of throw us off. And the challenge is that in this day and age with things like social media, everyone is throwing their values at us at any given time.
Sign up for this webinar, go to this course. I got this Lamborghini, I made $1 million in 30 days.
And so everybody has these different values they're projecting onto us. But the reality is, in the great words of Dr. DeMartini, any area of your life you don't empower will become overpowered by somebody else's agenda. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day will fill up with low priority distractions that don't. And unfortunately, I would argue that that's what holds most people back. It's not that they're not willing to work hard. Most people are just not willing to work hard at something that's truly not aligned. Anytime you're stuck with that next decision or that uncertainty or you feel stuck or whatever it is, just go back to the order of your values. And a lot of times it'll pop out at you. And if you can do that, now you begin to live a life that can be fulfilling, that can be rich. Not in some foo-foo way where everything goes perfect if you live by your values. Again, we're all imperfect beings. If I'm driving on the road and I don't have a GPS or a reference point for when I get lost, I'm just gonna wing all my decisions. Isn't that what most of us do in our life when we're not clear on our values? You know, we think kind of vaguely about things, and as a result, we live the consequences of that. I kind of think of it kind of like paying for a house. If I'm gonna buy a house, the more money you put up front, the less you pay monthly. But the less you put up front, the more you're gonna pay in interest and consequence down the road. And see, that's what most people do with their life. They don't decide up front. They don't pay cash up front. They don't talk out their values and say, hey, what do you value? So now that you kind of understand the function of values, now that I've kind of brain dumped it, now I have a question for you. What are your highest values? And you're in luck because I have some questions from the great Dr. John DeMartini to help you do exactly that. Here, my friends, we have 13 powerful questions to help you realize and reveal your truly highest values. And so these questions can kind of prompt some nuances. So I encourage you to grab a paper and pen, take some notes, pay attention. Trust me, this could change your life. How do you fill your space? How do you spend your time? How do you spend your energy? How do you spend your money? Where are you most organized? Where are you most reliable? What dominates your thoughts? What do you visualize most? What do you most often talk to yourself about? What do you most often talk to others about? What inspires you? What goals stand out in your life and have stood the test of time? And last but not least, number 13, what topics do you love to study, read about, or research? The whole goal here is not to think in terms of black and white, but it's to really clarify the gray. The goal is not to place judgment on values. Society does that enough. The goal is for you to give yourself permission to honor honor your values if you can just define them first, right? And the quality of your life comes down to the quality of questions you ask yourself. So it is so important as we get into this to really ask yourself these questions. You see, most people, in my belief, get stuck because they're trying to force themselves to come up with an answer. I would argue that what changes your life is asking better questions, because you're not responsible for the answer, you're dominantly responsible for asking the right question first. And if you have better answers, automatically you'll start to notice that you have a lot more clarity. You don't have pain point or inflection points where you go, should I go this way or that way? And you realize that preference won't dominate your life in the moment, but rather priorities. Now that we've got these questions dialed and you're beginning to start making sense of this, I want to encourage you guys to ask yourself these questions over and over again, because in different seasons of life, they'll change and ebb and flow. Your next question is probably something along the lines of, well, how do I change my values if I want to? Or how do I reinforce or enhance values that maybe I'm not living, that my life isn't reflecting, but I want them to be? And here's the answer. The truth of your values comes down to two words: your emotional association to those values. What I mean by that is that until you have an emotionally convicted reason to, you probably won't execute at the level you can. Let's take an extreme example. Let's say I told you, for the next 12 months, I want you to get into the best shape of your life, the best you can. I want you to imagine that vision. Now, on the other hand, what if I told you, hey, no matter what, in 12 months, you're gonna fight Conor McGregor in the octagon, or you're gonna play soccer in the World Cup? If I told you do your best physical health plan, vaguely like that, versus I tell you, hey, you're fighting Conor McGregor in front of 1 million people 12 months from now, wouldn't you have a different level of emotional conviction to those actions? So circumstance and the way the individual views it affects their emotional association to it.
Well, how do I strengthen my emotional association to it?
And there's no perfect way to do it, but one way that I've heard, spend time with it. I would argue that most people don't aim too high and miss. Most people aim too low and hit. But Dr. Demartini talks about this concept of writing something to the tune of 100 to 200 different reasons as to why that thing is important to you. So let's say, for example, your goal is to hit X amount of revenue or get in the best shape of your life. Most of the time, we have 5 or 6 reasons swimming around in our head, maybe if we're ambitious, a dozen or so. Imagine if you had 200 reasons you wrote down, where you just went so into it as to why it would matter to you. Those reasons become the compelling anchors for why you do the thing. Number 2, I would say, is to reflect on what's already worked in your life. I bet you, whether it's great friends, whether it's a great environment, whether it's a job you love, whether it's a hobby or craft you've been doing for many years, your life already demonstrates your values. It demonstrates your values, at least as of current. And so if you can take a look at what are areas of my life, right? Kind of like gravity operating, whether we like it or not, what are areas where values have operated, whether we liked it or not? And what were we telling ourselves? What were the compelling reasons about why we made things happen? You know, a lot of times it doesn't take 100 or 200 reasons, but the process of flushing them out might actually reveal the 5 or 6 things that truly light a fire inside. And in the great words of Jim Rohn, what's easy to do is also easy not to do. So do it, because once you do it, you'll see that your life will change one action at a time, because clarity is power, and the beliefs with which you operate from control your life. And that all starts by identifying your values. Once you do that, my friends, you will be able to truly live in what everybody seeks, and that is alignment. It's to live a fulfilling life that feels aligned. It's to live a life that feels like it was worth living. And it's to live a life where you honored your values rather than just vaguely lived and hoped to achieve things. Because you can stand on your values, and it's the only thing that is truly sustainable. Because without values, what do you have? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want me to make more like this, I've been super inspired to lately. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share your comments and questions down below. Just want to come from the heart and share this with you guys. So go out there, get some clarity on your values, and let me know how it works for you. Change my life, and I know it'll change yours. Peace.